So the other day I got this really interesting question about how do I study Japanese? Well, the way I study Japanese now is very, very different than the way I studied when I started out. I personally have gone through a lot of different study methods. I've pretty much tried them all out, right? I've tried the traditional study at school approach. I've tried the Anki everything and memorize everything as much as you can approach. I've tried the writing things down when you study approach. I've tried RTK, things like that. I've also tried the really hardcore super immersion type where we have the Japanese to Japanese sentences and all that kind of stuff. And to be honest, for me personally, only one way has worked consistently and been consistently enjoyable and beneficial to me. And that is just enjoying Japanese media. I'm not saying like hardcore, heavy, strict rules. I'm not talking about any particular study style like you might see with other YouTube channels. I'm just saying that for me personally, what has helped me and how I now study Japanese and how I wish I could have told myself earlier to study Japanese is just to enjoy the media that you want to enjoy. Right now, why are you studying? Think about that, right? Do you have a goal that you want to accomplish in the future? Is there something you want to be able to do? Something you want to be able to watch, play, see, talk, whatever it is? Try and take baby steps to get closer to that direction. Every day or whenever you do, you're going to be making progress to getting to be able to do that thing. So this all sounds very ideal, and I understand that everyone is different. Everyone has their own different learning styles, their own different approaches, and their own different things that work for them. So I'm just going to be talking about what works for me, right? You might be different, and that's totally fine. There is no be-all, end-all best way to study, okay? We're all different. We all have things that help motivate us differently, that help remember things differently, and I think it's really healthy to just keep that in mind, that we are different and we learn differently, and it's okay to not enjoy certain ways that other people like to study, and you don't have to do it one way or the highway. Like I see a lot in the Learn Japanese community, things can get quite heavy and serious, and a little bit too serious way too quickly. The fact is, we're all, probably most of us, are learning Japanese to enjoy the language. So I really recommend that you should find what you enjoy. Now, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that most of you probably enjoy video games. And that's the same for me too. My biggest motivator when learning Japanese has always been video games. The very first thing I did when I decided that I wanted to learn Japanese, way in the beginning, in the before times, I remember the first thing I ever did, the very first thing, was pick up Final Fantasy VII and Dragon Quest IX. And I just started playing through it. I wanted to try and do my best. Oh, and Pokemon as well. And I just wanted to try and, break down every single sentence and write down everything. And I even made the mistake of trying to translate the sentences before even knowing how to speak Japanese. And but that was always at the core of why I was studying Japanese. It was always at the core of, what motivated me and what likely motivates a lot of you. Maybe you want to enjoy some games. Maybe you want to feel that accomplishment of being able to play it in the native language. Maybe you want to watch anime. Maybe you want to watch Japanese TV and Netflix and things like that. Well, playing video games can help you do all of those things. And they can even help you with other things as well, like conversation and stuff. So what I'm going to be talking about today is how I study and how I accomplish these things that I just mentioned. So if I were to summarize my learning style or learning philosophy, it is get as much language into you as possible and don't be too harsh on yourself and critical, right? Those are the two things. So if you put it into a summarized thing, it's have fun and have lots of it, right? That's my kind of learning philosophy. So I personally feel, and if I were to go back in time and recommend to my younger self how to study, this is what I would say. So step number 1, you want to play video games. How do you do it? Well, so it depends on your motivation levels. If you're capable of playing through a game and kind of just working through it no matter how hard it is because you have the motivation to play that game and you love that story and you really want to keep going through it, great. Then I would recommend you to just keep doing what you're doing and you'll get there eventually. But if you're kind of getting overwhelmed at that, right? There's too much you don't know. There's too much that you're unable to comprehend and you're finding that a little bit overwhelming. Don't feel bad about that. That's totally normal. Everyone feels that way. What I would do is to try and maybe have a couple of games that you can play that will get the ball running for you. So once you've played a couple of games, you will have then developed enough time and experience to be able to recognize certain grammar patterns and things like that. So then when you play your own game, it's going to be much easier for you. So what kind of games would I recommend to myself if I could go back in time? Well, honestly, any game that has a game script is going to be fine for you. If that game happens to have voice acting as well, then it's perfect. If there's a game that has voice acting with a replay button, then you don't need to have a game script. For example, 13 Sentinels or some of the Persona games, they don't have a game script, but they have a replay button, so that it also makes it quite useful for you as well. Now, why do I say that you need to have, or that you should have, a game script for one of your first games? The reason for this is that if you have a game script, and if you have a tool on your browser, for example, Yomi-chan or Rikai-sama, something like that, where you can quickly highlight the words in the sentence to look up instant definitions, as well as instant parsing of the information. You can instantly break up the sentence and see what bit is which bit. That really helps you in the beginning when you don't have that ability to actually break it up yourself. So if I were to give recommendations to a beginner student, I would recommend to do that. Right? Use a tool like Yomi-chan through a game script, and as you play, go through that game with the game script on another window or something. And just when you see that line, all you have to do, it's as simple as this. Highlight your mouse at the beginning of the word, read it out loud so you see the reading and the meaning, move on to the next part, read it, meaning, move on, move on, move on. See if you can get a kind of understanding of what the sentence is. Don't worry about translating it perfectly straight away. Translating is a separate skill. Remember that. You're right now just trying to learn Japanese. Don't try and also learn translation at the same time. That's hard. Just go through the sentence, go through the pieces, and have a look at the structure. Have a look at how you see they're often sectioned by the particles, right? For example, like here in Final Fantasy VII. So we see this sentence, Hisashiburi no kokyo nandaro. So when you're first starting off, you might not be able to read this. You might not be able to tell where each piece of the sentence is, how this is actually, we have Hisashiburi, no, kokyo, and nanda, and we also have daro as well, technically. So this sentence has 5 pieces of language in it. Now, when you're first starting out, you might not be able to tell that. However, with Yomi-chan or with 1010 or whatever it's called, whatever kind of add-on you have for your browser, all you have to do is just highlight over that sentence. As you play, highlight over the hi, and we can see Hisashiburi for the long time. Then we have no, that's the possessive particle. Then we have kokyo, also read as furusato. This is a hometown. Nanda means it is that. And then this ro at the end is a bit tricky. You might not be able to pick this up. That's okay. You can kind of guess that it's like, it is that, you know, it's the first time in a long time, your hometown. So kind of, you know, you can piece it together. This is the first time for a while that you've been home. Now, eventually you'll be able to figure out that daro is actually desho, but it's kind of combined with nanda and daro. So nandaro. So the big thing that you should look at when you first see a sentence, right, is look for the particles. Most sentences have a wa particle, ga particle, some ni particles, sometimes to, right? Look out for these particles, right? Any kind of thing that's like wa, ga, ni wa, to, de, ya. Those type of things that are in the middle of the sentence, right? If you see them in between certain parts of words, this shows you the relationship of that word with the rest of the sentence. For me personally, I believe that you should go through it quickly. Do you understand the gist? Move on once you do. That's simple as that. Doing this, especially with a game that has a script like this that you can highlight with your mouse, this will enable you to get through your first couple of games at a really nice, enjoyable speed, and it will also allow you to get that review in, right? Have a look at these words. You'll see them over and over again. You will learn. For example, in this next sentence, どんな気分がするものなんだ。俺には国境がないからわからないんだ. So you look at this, and there might be a lot of language you don't know. Now, that's okay. It's all about a numbers game. Go through it as quickly as you can. Don't spend too much time. So again, with the power of almighty mouse, I would just go, click, donna, what kind of, kibun, feeling, ga suru, to do, mono, that looks complicated. I don't understand. That's fine. Nanda, it is that. So you can see that you're asking what kind of feeling is that. Donna kibun ga suru mono nanda. So you can kind of get the gist of it, even if you don't understand everything perfectly. Ore ni wa kokyou ga nai kara. So ore ni wa, ore is me, ni wa we can see here that it's for, to, in, regarding, so regarding me. Kokyou, again we get that review. Hometown, ga nai, doesn't exist. Kara, because. Wakaranainda. Wakaru here, as we see by highlighting, it's to understand, and then we have nai in the nai form to not understand, and then nda, if we highlight, it's here explaining something. So he's explaining that he doesn't know what it feels like to have a hometown. So with every sentence that you go through, for me, what I look for is those particles. That shows you who you're talking about, who's doing the action, and the relationship between the language with each other. Now, this was very, very quick, okay? But the point is go through it quickly. Don't spend too much time learning absolutely everything. For me, I wouldn't recommend to the past Matt to go put every single one of these pieces in an Anki flashcard and drill that through your head until you go to sleep. I personally wouldn't recommend it. Now, that's not to say it's not a good way. Anki is, to this day, probably the most efficient way of putting information into your head. It's really, really good. However, I have to admit, personally, it makes me feel like I'm a robot data entering things into my brain, and I'm just like slowly downloading the matrix. Not in a cool way, not in a fun way, in a way that takes hours of your life every single day.
Nice try, Thomas.
I personally would rather spend those hours playing games. And so for me, it's all about speed. You are going to see these pieces of language. You just are. You're going to see them used in thousands of different sentences, thousands of different contexts, and likely many, many, many different games. So for me, my goal isn't to spend 10 minutes on this one sentence, making sure you understand absolutely everything. That sucks the fun out of it. So you're using this combination of looking at the words, right, and then looking at how they are connected with particles. Now, I know that it looks very scary, but you get used to this over time. The more you see it, the more you see the way these grammar particles are used, and the more you do this, the more you'll be able to see what part of it is a noun and what part of it is a verb, and so on. And as I said in my recommendation, if you play a game that has a game script, you can use tools to help you do this. to develop your skills so that you gain that exposure before you start doing it yourself. If you try and do it yourself straight away, you could get overwhelmed. Where does something begin? Where does something end? So please check out the link below with some of the game scripts if you want. There's some on the Game Gengo Discord, and there's also some in the Jormarko spreadsheet down at the bottom that can really help you when you're starting out learning Japanese. Now, there are plenty of games that have game scripts, so you have lots of options of choice, right? You could play things like Final Fantasy. Most Final Fantasies have game scripts. You could play Chrono Trigger. You could also play a range of other games that are available online with game scripts. They're really, really helpful, especially when you're starting out. So my recommendation would be to start there. Why? Because it allows you to go through it quickly, and it allows you just to have this quick exposure, immersion, and just quickly getting that information through your head. The longer you spend on any sentence, the more time you spend on Anki, for example, or whatever, you're sapping the fun out of it. You're sapping the enjoyment out of it, and you're making it harder for yourself to keep it up. So for me, my personal belief is that you should try and make it as fun as possible, as quick as possible, quickly get the information. Now, I know some people are out there believing that you should skip things. Oh, you can see that they're talking about feeling in this sentence because it has the kanji for feeling, and you understand that, so you can move on. I don't really agree with that approach. When you're skipping something, you're not getting any benefit from it. If you only want to learn one thing, that's fine. But I think my approach, the way that I personally like to do it, isn't that difficult, thanks to game scripts. If you had to manually go through everything, hand write every kanji, try and find them by radicals like I did back in the day, it's not fun. It does suck the life out of it. If you are motivated to do it, then that's great. But I really feel like in the beginning especially, when there's just so much you don't know, you're going to end up ruining the experience by looking up everything to a huge extent. I only personally look up things when I'm curious as to how they work in the sentence. For example, the above example that we had a really nice piece of grammar. It was this mono. Now, we skipped over it today right now in my explanations because we kind of get the gist of the sentence, so it doesn't really matter. But if you really wanted to find it out, you could look up how mono is used as a piece of grammar. At that point, in the early levels, there's not too many great resources around. There's obviously, a whole bunch of places like the Dictionary of Japanese. That's pretty good. Although it does get a little bit professory with its speech that's quite difficult to follow. Imabi is great for really comprehensive explanation at imabi.com of grammar. But again, it can get a little bit wordy. Maggie Sensei sometimes has good ones as well, but again, a little bit wordy. I haven't really been able to find too many clear, concise explanations on the internet with grammar. And that's why I'm doing my grammar videos, that I don't really feel there is. But I personally, if I were you, I would just look at a piece of language if you're interested, for example here with mono, and I would just find some explanation that kind of makes sense, right? If you want, right? If you feel so inclined, great. If you have the motivation to look up something and actually, search out how it's used, and you want to kind of see other examples, great. If not, don't worry about it. You will get it eventually, okay? You will pick it up over time. So if we were to summarize my belief, my style, the way that I study, and the way that I would recommend my younger self is to find a game that is accessible, that you can quickly look things up. And that often means something with a game script, or for example, a game that has voice acting with a replay button, like 13 Sentinels, which will allow you to keep practicing and listening over and over again for you to then write down the sentence if you want. However, that is more work. I really would recommend a game that has a game script for your first couple of games to build that familiarity, to build that experience and all that kind of stuff, especially if they have an English translation on the side, like the Final Fantasy VII one does. So This is how I go passing things up in the beginning and kind of looking at the general structure until you become familiar with it. Next would be how to actually play games without game scripts, how to actually get into a game and begin studying while you're playing. Now, this is a little bit more difficult because obviously you need to look things up. My biggest recommendation is always going to be a game that has voice acting. That's number one, the biggest recommendation. Once you're past the game scripts, I would then move into games that have voice acting with button to press games. Any game that allows you to press a button and move on to the next scene at your own speed is going to be the best thing to do, because this allows you to listen to the sentence, and if there's a part that you don't know, which hopefully you know a lot of the sentence already having played a couple of games, now you will be able to then hear that word, and then just all I do, me personally, this is all I do when I come up with a word that I don't know. I hear it, I write it down on Google, I quickly highlight, have a look at what it is, and move on. That's it. Move on as soon as you can. Don't spend too much time. If the word is important enough for you to know, if it's something that you're going to need to know because it appears so regularly, then it will appear regularly, giving you chance and opportunity to review it. If it's a super rare piece of language that you're never going to see and you're never going to remember unless you cram it in your head with Anki, how important is it really for you to learn, right? And that's kind of how I approach things. If you see it often, look it up, quickly get the reading, move on. That's it. Just doing that will just give your brain a chance to review, give yourself a chance to learn and remember, but if you don't, it's okay because you'll probably see it again later. Make sure you get a kind of gist of what's being said in the sentence. Don't try and translate it 100% perfectly. That's a separate job. That's a separate skill that takes many years to refine. So don't try that, but just try and get an understanding, a gist. Keep fun while you're playing. That would be my personal style. Now, there are plenty of other ways that you could study as well. I have in the past kept a list of everything that I've come across. As I play, I actually write down the scripts. I don't really recommend it. It's fine, totally fine. I've had some great memories of it. It's really fun in the beginning. It is a big job though. Remember, you are now doing a separate job. On top of your study, you're now transcribing a game. That's a lot of work. It can be very beneficial for you in your Japanese language because you're actually creating that language, right? You're typing it out. So that's giving you creation practice, right? This kind of productive practice, practice producing the language. So it can be beneficial. It can also be boring at times, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. Another really good thing that you can do is actually record yourself playing. That's a really good one. Even if you can record yourself speaking as well, that's an interesting one. Because what that allows you to do is that maybe later you could go back and rewatch the footage and try and see, like, do you remember what it was that you read at that time? And if you record your speaking as well, then you can even listen to your pronunciation and kind of compare it to perhaps if they have voice acting, compare it to that or whatever, and maybe see where you're going wrong, right? So games with voice acting obviously are very, very useful for that. Now, with this style of study, again, I'm not saying that it's the best style. I'm not saying that there aren't any other more efficient styles. I'm just saying that for me personally, this is the most enjoyable style, and ultimately this is what I want to do. I want to be able to play, all my favorite video games in Japanese, and the only way to be able to actually do something is to practice and develop your skills doing it, right? You can study a textbook about how to do coding for years and years and years and years, but you're only really going to get those skills when you start to do coding. You can study how to play music for your whole life. You can study all the theory and everything, but until you pick up that instrument and actually start playing it, that's when you really connect with the actual action itself. And I feel the same way with language, right? You can study and read a billion textbooks about the theoretical way grammar is used, or you can see how it's used see it over context, and develop your own understanding and connections to how it's used, right? Get quick explanations and then move on. It's all a numbers game, trying to get as much as you can, as much exposure as possible. So in this study style, there's no Anki a part of it. You can always put Anki into this study style. It's just you're going to have less time to be able to actually do your immersing or enjoying of material. Now, I've seen some resources out there. I'm not going to call any names out, but I've seen some resources out there that have been a little bit too critical and a little bit too harsh about certain things, about, you know, when you should do this and when you shouldn't, and, you know, you must not do this, and oh no, you can't do that, and oh, you have to make sure that you don't do anything until you get to this certain level. And look, if you have a passion and an interest to do something, then just do it. Right? It's going to help you. You're going to be motivated. Your goal is to find what you find motivating and enjoyable, right? And if that is grinding through a really old school RPG, even though you can barely read the text, then sure, that's wonderful. Whatever keeps you motivated, because the fact is, the more you keep at it, the more progress you're going to make. And if you're enjoying yourself, you're going to keep on doing it, right? So for me, this is my immersion approach. It's a little bit different to some of the other ones out there that are quite strict in the way that you need to do things, or strict in the way you look things up. I think you should look everything up, but just do it very quickly, right? Just quickly go, oh, I get it, okay, I get it, I get the gist, great, move on. Because you are going to see it. You're going to see it a lot. You're going to get plenty of time to get revision. You're going to get plenty of time to build context. You don't need to search the internet to build that context. That's why you're playing. So what about when you get burnt out? Now, this is a really normal thing. Don't feel bad if you get burnt out with your Japanese study. I've experienced it more times than I can remember, right? It's a really normal thing. You can't do something every single day for the rest of your life and not sometimes need a break, okay? It's okay if you're burnt out from things, if you lose your motivation, if you change your study methods. Don't feel like you ever need to keep it just one thing or one style, right? It's fine to take breaks. It's fine to just try different things. Find whatever works for you personally. My style isn't necessarily going to work for you as well as it might for people who do find it helpful, right? Like for myself. I know, for example, there's a great guy in our Discord community, and he personally wants to get to a certain level first before playing games. And everyone's certain level is different, right? It's kind of difficult to say. There is no magical number when you're ready to play video games, because every video game is going to use different language, and you're only going to get that language by playing the games. You're not going to be able to get all of the language about, fantasy summons and magic and attacks and war by studying the JLPT, are you? They're not going to cover that language. So you're still going to be stuck regardless. Realistically, with the grammar that I have on my channel already, right? If you study that grammar, you should be able to now start playing games, right? You don't need to 100% understand the complete intricacies of absolutely everything before, getting started. I think that it's much more beneficial for you to do whatever you enjoy. And if playing games happens to be that, then hey, more power to you. But when you get burnt out, right, when you're just destroyed and you can't feel like studying, it happens to everyone. It happens to me as well. What do I do to recover? Well, in the past, I've taken, week breaks, I think even month breaks before. What always got me back on track was just reminding myself why I'm doing it in the first place. Now, it might be different for you. Maybe you're studying just as a hobby and you don't really have a reason. Maybe you're studying because you want to work in Japan. Maybe you're studying because you want to be able to speak with your family or something, right? So everyone has their own different goals and motivations. For me, what brought me back from burnout was reminding myself of what motivates me, right? Reminding myself of what I want to be able to do, and why I'm studying in the first place, right? And for me, that's video games. For me, that's enjoying video games, and enjoying Japanese media. Maybe not necessarily modern media, but a lot of retro classic stuff I love. And the best thing about a lot of that is that a lot of it's not translated, so you can actually experience it for the first time sometimes, or experience it in a more pure sense, right? I know a lot of people, they find it kind of annoying when you get these kind of really creative translations for games where it's not authentic, it's not right on the dot with what was actually said in the Japanese version. Well, if you know Japanese, you don't have to worry about that. You can play the game and enjoy that. And for me, that's a huge motivator. Look, everyone needs a break. Everyone needs to be able to relax and take it easy. Don't feel bad about that. Don't beat yourself up. I think we all have a tendency to be really hard on ourselves and, just kind of take everything so seriously, and we need to be the most effective, most efficient. We need to, always do all these things, and just chill and just enjoy what you're doing, right? And I think this can apply to all aspects of life. You just need to take a step back, just take a breath, and just enjoy what you're doing. Enjoy the moment that you're living in, right? Enjoy your life, enjoy whatever you're doing. And for me, I love Japanese, even when it gets ridiculously crazy hard and what the kind of moments. I still love it. It's interesting, it's fascinating, and even if kanji's tough, I still appreciate it, and I know that I'm acquiring this really interesting skill by studying it, and it's something that I can do things I never thought possible when I was younger. So just find what motivates you and remind yourself, and don't be afraid to take breaks. So that's pretty much it, right? That's pretty much how I study, right? For me, it's all about immersion, right? And it's all about motivation. Immersion, enjoyment, and keeping those motivation levels high, making sure that you're having fun. So I truly believe, for me personally, and if I was to give my younger self advice, look, you don't have to do Anki all day, every day. Yes, it's efficient. Yes, it's amazing. Yes, it's great. Yes, it's boring as hell. And I know a lot of people who feel like they need to get to this kind of time limit. They need to get this progress. They feel like, oh, I'm not at the N4 level yet. I feel like I've been spending too many years at this stage. Just don't be so hard on yourself. Remember, this is one of the, if not the hardest language, especially for native speakers, for people to learn. It's a complicated language with a lot of different writing styles, speech patterns. You have slang and keigo and all kinds of different things that you have to, get used to, and that takes time, right? But just know that it does get better. It does. It does get easier. It does get more familiar. And right now, the things that seem alien and impossible to you right now, you will eventually understand them and not feel worried at all when you look at them. I know for me personally, I used to get so scared whenever I saw keigo, because it's something that you never really get practice with. It's something that you see in business and stuff like that, but in normal everyday life, you don't really see much of it. But now that I've played a bunch of games where keigo is really, really common, I'm really, really confident and happy with it. It's not something that scares me away. And as you can see, I've taught a whole bunch of it already. It's not really that challenging once you break down what the language is. But it's just kind of, it's all about exposure. It really, really is. And don't be so hard on yourself. If you don't enjoy how you're studying, don't feel so bad. Just change the way you're studying, right? Find what you enjoy. Just because one person says that you must do it this way doesn't mean that's the best way for you. So hopefully this video has helped you with, how to study Japanese. For me, it's all about immersion. It's all about exposure, right? You just want to see the language, but just immersing by itself isn't learning. You need to look things up. Every time you look something up, you're giving yourself an opportunity to be able to remember and learn that piece of language. And every time you skip over something, you're robbing yourself of that experience and that chance, right? So how do you do it in an enjoyable way? That's by doing it quickly. Just quickly go through things and go, okay, yep, me as for dun dun dun, right? Just quickly break it down. That's my advice. And that's how I personally study every single day. That's how I do it. When I read a book, I just go through it and just slowly go through it. Something that really helps is looking at those particles that I mentioned before. It can help you kind of break apart how the sentence is structured. So there we go. There's my kind of 10K subscriber special about just kind of looking at how I currently study Japanese and how I would recommend perhaps for my past self. If I could go back in time, how would I change the way I study to increase my overall enjoyment of studying Japanese? So what do you guys think? That's just my personal opinion. That's how I study. Everyone's different. Some people think you must try and skip everything. Some people think you need Anki before you get to a certain level. What do you guys think? How do you study Japanese? I'm really interested to see, what your study methods are, what you find useful for yourself. Who knows? Maybe I can learn some things from you about, ways to improve my own way of studying. No one has the perfect way of studying. Really, you should just enjoy yourself. At the end of the day, this is not a job. This is not something that you need to stress yourself and pressure yourself and feel guilt over doing. Just enjoy yourself. And hopefully my channel can help you guys enjoy Japanese, and hopefully at a less tense atmosphere, although I understand sometimes with the size of my videos it can get a little bit overwhelming. So sorry about that, but hopefully you guys are enjoying learning Japanese with the channel, and thank you so much all 10,000 of you for subscribing to the channel. I'm so blown away by all of your guys' support, so thank you so much. And I hope you look forward to all of the amazing things that we have coming for this channel, and we do have some amazing things coming. I am so happy with some of the recent developments that I've been making with the way that I can search for grammar and stuff. I'm slowly compiling this mega list that I talked about in the last video, and it's a mega list. I'm going to very soon, at the press of a button, be able to instantly search through like 200 games for anything I want. It's insane, and I cannot wait. What we're going to be able to do with this channel is I don't even know the limits of where I can go with this technology, so I can't wait to share it all with you. First up we have is the N3 videos that I'm working towards. I have just finished pretty much all of the examples, so look forward to that coming out. I'm probably going to have them set to be released at a weekly schedule every week, and I'll have a whole bunch of them made, so it'll just be constant content, so I can also make other things as well. So thank you very much for watching, guys. As always, a huge thank you to all of the supporters on Patreon. If you guys want to support the channel, help us grow, and help continue this channel to stay alive, please consider joining us on Patreon and joining our Gengo Discord community, where we hang out and chat and talk about study techniques and share information about games and just, make friends. It's a really cool place to hang out. I really do genuinely enjoy just chilling out there all the time, chatting with people. It's nice to be able to connect with the community. So thank you so much, guys, for all of your support. And as always, have fun with your study, and I'll see you all again next time.